I always thought the scariest sounds were the loud ones, screams, crashes, sudden bangs in the night. But I was wrong. The most terrifying sound is silence. Not the comfortable, cozy kind that comes when the world is asleep. No, I'm talking about the silence that feels heavy, like it's pressing against your chest, waiting for you to notice what's hiding inside it. That was the kind of silence I felt that night. It started like any other Tuesday. Work had been a grind, the kind of day where the clock feels broken and every minute drags across your nerves. By the time I got home, I was desperate for quiet. I microwaved leftovers, poured a glass of cheap red wine, and curled up on the couch with the TV murmuring in the background. Just noise to drown out the day. Around 10 p.m., I clicked off the screen. The house immediately felt bigger, emptier. My place isn't large. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people to cook in without elbowing each other. Still, when the TV went dark, the silence seemed to spill out from every corner, like something alive. I brushed it off, grabbed my phone, and scrolled until my eyelids got heavy. By 11, I decided to head to bed. I made my usual rounds, lock the front door, slide the bolt across the back one, tug on the window latches. I've always been a little obsessive about that routine, but living alone does that to you. You create rituals that make you feel safe, even if they don't really mean anything. I remember glancing at the hallway mirror as I passed. My reflection looked wrong. Not in a ghost story way, no glowing eyes or shadow figures, but tired, too pale, almost startled to see me. I shook it off, muttering, "Get some sleep, Dana," as if saying my name would ground me. That's when I heard it, the first sound, a faint click. I froze. My hand was still on the light switch in the hallway, thumb hovering but not pressing. I listened, nothing, just the faint hum of the fridge down the hall and the whisper of wind against the siding. Maybe the heater adjusting. Houses make noises. That's what I told myself. I turned the light off, climbed into bed, and tried to let my body sink into the mattress. But my brain wouldn't let go. The click hadn't sounded mechanical, not like pipes or settling wood. It had been sharper, intentional, like the sound of a latch. I flipped onto my side, trying to ignore the way my stomach twisted. That's when I heard the second sound. Not a click this time, a creak. It came from the kitchen, slow, deliberate, like weight pressing down on a loose floorboard. I sat up in bed, my pulse spiking so hard I could feel it in my throat. "It's nothing," I whispered. My voice sounded too loud, like it didn't belong to me. I slid out of bed and padded barefoot across the carpet. Every step a battle between logic and instinct. Logic said it was nothing. Instinct screamed, "Don't go," but I had to. Not knowing was worse. The hallway stretched longer than I remembered, shadows bending in strange ways under the moonlight seeping through the blinds. When I reached the kitchen doorway, I leaned against the frame and peered in. Nothing. The small table stood exactly as I'd left it. 2 chairs tucked neatly under. The counter was clean except for the empty wine glass by the sink. No movement, no sound. I exhaled shakily, pressing my hand against my chest like I could steady my heart through skin alone. Probably the house, old wood, shifting air. I turned back toward the hallway. That's when I noticed it, the back door bolt. It was unlatched. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might throw up. I know I'd locked it. I remember sliding the bolt across with my own hand not even an hour ago. Yet there it was, halfway open, like someone had tugged it back. I stood frozen, staring at that strip of metal, my body screaming at me to do something, anything, but all I could do was stand there, rooted in place. Finally, I forced myself to move. Step by step, I crossed the kitchen, each breath shallow, each nerve screaming. I reached the door, grabbed the bolt with shaking fingers, and shoved it firmly back into place. The sound of metal scraping into the lock felt deafening. "Locked," I whispered, as if saying it out loud would make it true again. I backed away, keeping my eyes fixed on the door like it might spring open at any second. Then I did the only thing my panic-strangled brain could think of. I grabbed a chair and jammed it under the doorknob. It was stupid, childish, like something out of a bad horror movie, but it made me feel like I'd done something, anything to fight back against the creeping dread. I turned to leave the kitchen when I caught sight of the hallway mirror again, and my blood ran cold, because this time my reflection wasn't looking at me, it was looking past me. I whipped around, scanning the kitchen, the corners, the hallway behind me. Nothing. Empty. My own pulse thudded in my ears so loud it almost drowned out the silence. Almost. Because beneath it, faint but real, I heard it again. That same creak. But this time, it wasn't the kitchen floorboard. It was the hallway. The hallway behind me. I didn't breathe. Couldn't. My eyes darted to the shadows stretching across the wall. One of them looked wrong. Too tall, too still. My hand slid blindly across the counter until I felt the cool handle of a knife from the drying rack. I gripped it, the metal slick against my sweaty palm. I forced myself to speak, though my voice cracked like brittle glass. "Who's there?" The silence that followed was worse than any answer. And that's when I realized something that made my skin crawl straight down to the bone. The bolt on the back door hadn't been left undone, it had been opened. My knuckles whitened around the knife handle as I stared into the hallway. The shadow stretched long and crooked across the carpet, but when I shifted my stance, it didn't move. Shadows always move when you do. This one didn't. Every instinct screamed at me to run, out the front door, out into the street, screaming for help like some horror movie cliché. But I couldn't. My body wouldn't obey. I just stood there, eyes locked on that unnatural stillness, knife shaking in my grip. "Who's there?" I tried again, my voice hoarse. Nothing. Then came the sound, not a creak this time, not a click. Something worse, breathing, slow, heavy, drawn out like someone was deliberately making it audible. I felt my stomach lurch. It wasn't the kind of breathing you make when you're scared. It was calm, controlled, patient, like whoever or whatever was in my hallway wanted me to know they were there. I forced my feet backward, inching toward the living room. The carpet muffled my steps, but the knife felt loud, scraping faintly against the counter edge before I pulled it close to my chest. The breathing didn't stop. My mind scrambled. Call the police, call anyone. My phone, I'd left it charging on the nightstand in my bedroom, which meant I'd have to go deeper into the house. Past the hallway, past the breathing. No, not happening. I backed into the living room, flicked on the lamp with a trembling hand. The warm glow filled the space, but it didn't chase away the dread. Light didn't matter when something was inside the house with you. I reached for the cordless phone on the side table. Dead. No dial tone, just empty static. That's when the whisper came. Not loud, barely audible, but enough to freeze every muscle in my body. "Dana." It wasn't shouted, it wasn't even spoken like a question, just whispered. They knew my name. The room tilted, nausea rising so fast I nearly dropped the knife. Whoever was in my house wasn't random. They weren't here by accident. I spun toward the hallway again. Nothing moved, just that stretched, wrong shadow frozen against the wall. But the breathing had stopped, replaced by a silence so complete it pressed against my eardrums. I had two choices: run for the front door or get to my bedroom and grab my phone. The front door was closer. I made my decision. I sprinted, barefoot slapping against the hardwood, every nerve screaming at me to move faster. I reached the front door, fumbled with the locks, yanked the handle. It didn't budge. The bolt was locked. Not just locked, jammed like someone had wedged it from the outside. Panic clawed at my throat. I shoved at it again and again, tears stinging my eyes, until my hand slipped on the cold metal. Whoever had come in had made sure I couldn't get out. Then I heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming down the hallway. I turned, chest heaving, knife raised. My voice came out ragged, half scream, half plea. "Get out! I swear to God I'll—" The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was worse than anything, like whoever was there was enjoying this, playing with me. Then from the dark, a low chuckle. Not loud, just a breath of laughter, enough to make every hair on my body stand on end. I gripped the knife tighter, backing into the corner near the door. My eyes darted across the living room. Windows. If I couldn't get out the door, I could break the glass. I grabbed the nearest chair, ready to hurl it, when something caught my eye. The blinds, they were already open. I swear I'd closed them earlier. I remember pulling them shut before I turned off the TV, but now they were wide, letting in the pale wash of moonlight. And outside, on the porch, I saw something that nearly made me drop the knife. A pair of shoes, black sneakers, facing the door, like someone had just been standing there watching before I locked up for the night. My breath hitched and I stumbled back, chair clattering against the floor. The noise echoed through the house, too loud, too sharp, and that's when the footsteps started again. Not slow this time, not deliberate, running, charging straight down the hallway. I screamed and swung the knife at the air, my arm jerking wildly as I stumbled backward. But no one came through the doorway. The footsteps stopped just at the threshold, like whoever it was knew I was waiting, knife raised, cornered like prey. My chest burned, lungs clawing for air, then silence again. I stood there for what felt like hours, knife shaking in my hand, waiting for something, anything, to happen. But nothing did. No footsteps, no breathing, just silence. Finally, trembling, I lowered the knife and took a step toward the hallway. Just one. The floor groaned under my weight. And that's when I saw it. The shadow on the wall. It wasn't frozen anymore. It was moving, slowly, so slowly, like someone was standing just out of sight, leaning forward, stretching taller, waiting for me to take another step closer. I stumbled back, slamming into the door, heart hammering like it might break through my chest, and then, without warning, the lamp in the living room flickered, once, twice, and went out. The house plunged into darkness. I didn't scream, I couldn't. The silence pressed against me, thicker now, suffocating. Somewhere in the black, the whisper returned. Dana. And this time it was closer, much closer. Darkness swallowed the room whole. My breath hitched, ragged and shallow, like even the air had turned against me. The knife shook in my hand, but what good was it if I couldn't see? I forced myself to stay still, straining my ears. The whisper had come from just a few feet away. I was sure of it. Every nerve screamed that something stood in the same darkness I was drowning in, waiting for me to stumble. For a moment, nothing. Then, faint. So faint I thought I imagined it. The sound of bare feet shifting against carpet. Closer. I gripped the knife tighter, forcing myself to move. My hand fumbled along the wall until I found the light switch. I slapped it up, desperate for light. Nothing. The power was gone. A laugh bubbled from the darkness. Low, breathy, not the laugh of someone amused, but of someone savoring my panic. I lunged toward the window, the one with the blinds thrown open. My fingers clawed for the latch, shoved it upward. It wouldn't budge, jammed just like the front door. My pulse thundered in my ears. Whoever had done this hadn't just broken in. They'd prepared. They knew exactly how to box me in. Why me? I whispered into the dark. My voice cracked, fragile. The answer came in a whisper that slid across the black like oil. Because you're home. The words clung to me like ice water. No reason, no motive, just because. The sound of footsteps shifted again. Slow, circling. Whoever it was moved just beyond my reach, like a predator pacing its prey. I twisted toward the sound, knife raised, trying to follow the invisible arc of movement. My body ached from tension, every muscle screaming to act, but fear rooted me to the floor. Then came the sudden crash. A picture frame toppled from the hallway wall, shattering across the tile. I gasped, spinning toward the sound, knife shaking in my grip. My breathing grew frantic, shallow, almost hyperventilating. And then, silence again. I took a step back. Then another. My heel brushed against the fallen chair by the door. I thought about hurling it through the window, but something inside me said not yet. That they were waiting for me to do just that. Instead, I slid along the wall, keeping my back pressed tight, inching toward the kitchen. My phone was in the bedroom, but the kitchen had a landline jack. Even if the cordless was dead, maybe I could plug something in. Maybe. The air grew colder the further I crept, like I was moving deeper into the house's lungs, into the place it kept hidden. My toes brushed over the cracked picture frame as I passed, glass crunching softly underfoot. The sound broke the silence, and the silence broke back. Because the moment I stepped on that glass, I heard it again, breathing, right behind me. I spun, knife slashing through the dark. Nothing. Just shadows layered on shadows. But the sound was real. So close it had brushed against my ear. I stumbled backward into the kitchen, fumbling for the counter. My fingers found the flashlight drawer, shoved it open. Empty, of course. Then a sharp metallic clang. The chair I'd wedged under the back door shifted. Something was testing it. I lunged forward, slammed the bolt back down, shoved the chair tighter. My chest heaved with every breath. Whoever was inside wasn't working alone. I was trapped between shadows outside and shadows in. "Stop!" I shouted, my voice hoarse. "Leave me alone!" Silence. For a heartbeat I thought maybe they'd left. Maybe I'd scared them off. And then my phone rang. The sound came from my bedroom down the hall. The ringtone slicing through the silence, sharp and jarring. I froze. My phone had been on silent, always. I never turned the ringer on. Someone had. The sound echoed, muffled but insistent. Ring, ring, ring. My mouth went dry. If I wanted help, I had to go through the hallway, through the dark, past whatever was hiding there. I swallowed hard, adjusted the knife in my grip, and forced one foot forward. The carpet felt like it dragged me down with every step. Ring. My shadow stretched thin across the wall. I watched it, praying it was the only one. Ring. The sound drew me closer, pulling me down the hallway like bait. Ring. I reached my bedroom door. It was cracked open, the glow of the charging screen faint against the dark. My heart hammered as I pushed it open, knife raised. Empty. The phone lay on the nightstand, buzzing, screen lit with unknown number. My hands shook as I grabbed it, pressed it to my ear. Hello? For a moment, nothing, just static. Then a whisper. Turn around. Every muscle locked. My throat closed. Slowly, so slowly, I turned toward the bedroom doorway. And there, just for an instant, I saw it. A figure. Tall, thin, motionless. Standing at the end of the hallway, silhouetted against the faint moonlight from the living room. Watching me. The phone slipped from my hand, clattering to the floor. I stumbled back, knife raised, pulse screaming in my ears. But when I blinked, the figure was gone. Only shadows remained. I gasped, dragging in air like I'd been drowning. The room tilted, my knees threatening to buckle. Then my phone buzzed again. A text message, from unknown number, 4 words. You're not alone, Dana. My hands trembled as I stared at the glowing screen. My vision blurred with tears I didn't remember forming. I pressed my palm over my mouth to keep from screaming. Because that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the photo attached. It was of me, standing in the kitchen, taken less than 5 minutes ago. The photo burned into my vision, the glow of the phone screen casting pale light over my trembling hands. My mind spun in frantic circles, trying to make sense of it. How? When? I had been alone in the kitchen. At least I thought I had. But the photo didn't lie. The knife nearly slipped from my slick palm. My breaths came fast and shallow, like I couldn't get enough air, like the walls were closing in. Whoever was here. They weren't just in the house. They were watching, studying, taking their time. I staggered back against the nightstand, eyes darting to the window. Maybe I could throw the lamp through the glass, climb out, scream for help. But then I remembered the sneakers on the porch. If one was inside, maybe another was outside. The text buzzed again. Another photo, this one from behind me, my bedroom door, wide open. The timestamp was now. I spun around, knife slashing at the air, throat raw as a scream tore free. The doorway yawned open, empty. Shadows stretched across the floor, taunting, shifting. "Where are you?" I shrieked, my voice cracked, desperation shredding through it. "What do you want from me?" No answer, just silence. But I knew they wanted fear. They wanted to draw it out, savor it, stretch it until it broke me in half. I dropped low, crawling along the floor, knife tight against my chest. My only chance was to get out, no matter how. I reached the dresser, yanked open the bottom drawer. My fingers closed around the cold metal of my backup phone. Dead. Of course it was dead. Another buzz, another photo. This time, the living room. The back of my own head bent over the dresser drawer. I choked back a sob, biting down hard on my knuckle to keep quiet. They were close, too close. Something creaked. The hallway. A floorboard shifting under weight. My body moved before my mind caught up. I scrambled under the bed, pressing myself flat against the cold floor, knife clutched tight. Dust stung my eyes, but I didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe too loud. The creak came again. Footsteps, slow, steady, drawing closer. Through the narrow gap beneath the bed frame, I saw them. Bare feet, pale, dirt-streaked, toes dragging slightly with each step. They moved across my carpet, closer, closer, until they stopped just inches from the bed. I pressed my lips shut, chest burning with the effort not to breathe. My vision tunneled, blood pounding in my ears. The feet turned, pacing, circling the room, and then they bent down. A face appeared upside down in the gap, eyes wide, grinning, teeth bared in a silent, twisted smile. I couldn't stop it. I screamed, thrusting the knife out blindly. The blade scraped against wood, slicing air, but the face vanished. The footsteps pounded out of the room, fast. I scrambled out from under the bed, knife ready, chest heaving. My scream had shattered the silence, and now every corner of the house felt alive, pulsing with shadows that shifted just beyond sight. "Enough!" I shouted into the dark, voice raw. "I'm not your toy." Somewhere in the house, laughter answered. I didn't think. I just ran. Out of the bedroom, down the hallway, through the living room. My shoulder slammed into the wall, pain shooting down my arm, but I didn't stop. I barreled into the kitchen, straight for the back door. The chair scraped as I yanked it free. I slammed the bolt up, shoved at the door with all my weight. It opened 2 inches, then stopped. Something blocked it. I shoved harder. It groaned against resistance. And then, through the crack, I saw it. An eye, staring back at me. Blood roared in my ears. I shoved the door closed, bolted it, stumbling back with a sob. My body shook so violently I nearly dropped the knife. Every exit was sealed, every escape cut off. The house groaned as footsteps began again. Upstairs this time. Heavy, deliberate pacing across the ceiling. But I didn't have stairs. There was no upstairs. I dropped to the floor, crawling backward into the corner. My back pressed against the cabinets, knife clutched to my chest. My heart felt like it was tearing itself apart. And then, silence again. My phone buzzed on the floor where I'd dropped it. I snatched it up with shaking fingers, eyes blurring through tears. Another message. "Look up." I froze. Every muscle locked. My throat closed. Slowly, so slowly, I tilted my head back, and there, crouched against the ceiling like a spider, was the figure. Arms and legs bent at impossible angles, head cocked, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. It smiled. I screamed, slashing the knife upward, but it dropped from the ceiling, crashing onto me with impossible weight. The phone flew from my hand, clattering across the tiles. My vision blurred as I kicked, clawed, fought with every ounce of strength, but its hands were ice cold, pinning me down. "Please," I begged, voice breaking. "Don't," the whisper slid against my ear, calm and certain. "You're mine." And then, darkness. I woke hours later. Morning light streamed through the blinds. The house was silent. No broken glass, no footprints, no shadows on the wall. My phone lay on the counter, screen dark. My knife still clutched in my aching hand. It could have been a dream. It should have been a dream. Except for the photo. The one waiting in my gallery. Me. Asleep on the floor. Taken while the sun was rising.